Good evening, wonderful viewers. It's Wednesday, the 21st of August, 2024. From wherever you're watching us from, this is yet another interesting edition of the Youth Dialogue. And this time around, we are going to focus on the much talked about new draft constitution. We are looking at the legalities of it, you know, whether it was constitutional, it wasn't constitutional, you know, the perspective of the young people as far as the draft constitution is concerned. Since last week, you know, the debates have been going on from all sectors of society. The people are voicing their concerns, you know, their observations, and then, you know, some of them are suggesting, you know, amendments as far as the draft constitution is concerned. As you can recall, the draft constitution, the process started way back in 2020, and the Constitutional Review Commission was set up. And then they toured the length and breadth of the country to actually seek the opinions of Gambians, including those in the diaspora, and at least $123 million was spent, you know, in this process. Many regarded it as a consultative one. But, you know, fast forward in 2024, the executive re-gazetted this draft constitution. And, you know, this really sparked debate from all sectors of the society. People, you know, have divergent views as far as the draft constitution is concerned. So to really focus on these and others, I am joined by young people here. I have Counsel Manjiki Sane, a legal practitioner, and of course, on my far right, I have Omar Kamara, who is from a member of the civil society organization and a human rights activist. And of course, Kofi Gananyao. I have Degen Job, Joben Lamom, Deputy Speaker of the National Youth Parliament. And, you know, they will be taking us through, you know, this conversation. So good evening, gentlemen and lady.
Thank you.
Degen, what am I start na? Nyom lao hon ñu door conversation. Mom Joben la. So tay dama ko promote.
You know, dama la tank lo ñu fi luñ fi téwé rek first. Nala bala lo def nala bala.
Luma def bana. So thank you very much really. To start off with the conversation, I will start with lawyer Sane. Take us through really, what do you first make up this draft constitution as a Gambian?
I don't know where you want me to speak from the legal perspective or from an ordinary citizen's perspective.
Legal perspective.
Looking at the legal perspective, I think I am actually one of the least happy about the constitution. I've actually manifested this through my various posts that I've actually sent online, especially on Facebook. The draft constitution, which is the 2024 draft constitution, actually is a shadow of its parent draft, which was the 2020 draft. That was actually well consultative, because this was done by legal experts who taught the country to actually solicit opinions and to at least represent the aspirations of people around the country. Looking at this 2024 draft constitution, it actually has various, it actually characterized various changes, one of which is the change of the retroactiveness of the clause that would allow the president to actually run for another 2 terms, because that is actually, I think, one of the reasons why, as to why the draft constitution failed at the National Assembly level. Some of the key provisions that were also, I think, removed from the draft constitution was actually the appointment of the Chief Justice, the appointment of the DPP, that is the Director of Public Prosecution, and then also the appointment of the head of the Electoral Commission. These are key members of our society. These are the people that actually determine our lives. They determine the trajectory through which the country runs. If the appointment of these people are actually solely and wholly done by the president, it actually affects our democracy. And this is one of the main reasons as to why I believe this particular draft constitution is actually it's politicized to ensure that the government has firm grips on power, to ensure that this particular government runs the country just like how the previous government did, because when Jammeh came in, he made a lot of amendments. About 49 amendments were done to the 1997 constitution. And these actually allowed Jammeh to have firm grips on power. And this is the same thing that Barrow is trying to do to ensure that he also rules us as he pleases. So I'm actually not happy with the way the draft constitution has actually been, you know, changed to suit how the executive want to run the country.
So recently, the Gambia Bar Association issued a statement, actually. You as a lawyer, do you endorse their statement?
Yes, 100%. I think what the GBA is actually advocating for is to ensure that this process is consultative. When the Constitutional Review Commission was established, they were given the mandate under the Act to at least solicit opinions from stakeholders, including citizens. These people did an excellent job, deliver the Constitution to the President. When the President received this, it was later on presented to Parliament, and it was rejected at the Parliament's level. The executive, instead of consulting back, if they want to bring back the Constitution, there is no law that stops the executive, that is the President and the Cabinet of Ministers, to bring back the Constitution. But the manner in which they bring it is actually what is frowned upon by the GBA. And they are absolutely right. Even though there is no legal requirement, I would emphasize this, there is no legal requirement for the executive to solicit opinions from people. In fact, CRC is not found in the Constitution. So the Constitution does not, in fact, impose an obligation on the government to consult people to drafting a constitution and bringing it to the Parliament. There is no legal basis for that. However, this is what democracy calls for. So if the President wants to bring back the Constitution, just like what the CRC did, they were also supposed to go out there, solicit the opinion of stakeholders, maybe probably not all the citizens, because that is going to take a long time, but at least the key stakeholders like the Gambia Bar Association, some other legal experts, and some other CSOs that are really active and would be able to at least give opinions that would benefit all of us. But just for a couple of people to just come into delete, insert, and amend the Constitution as they please is actually something that the GBA is actually not okay with. And I think I'm really in support of the statement.
Okay,
Yes.
very well. So Omar, what has been your reaction to the new draft Constitution?
Right, thank you very much, Julde. I'm pleased to be here. For me, my first reaction, like Council said, my first post on Facebook was the Constitution, that is the 2024 version, is as problematic as the 1997 Constitution. Because for me, I think my view is we as a community, we as a society, we have a problem. And the problem was, you know, like he said, we had a constitution. We had 1997 constitution. This constitution was monopolized, and it was built on building power around one individual, amended over 50 times, or lesser or more. We couldn't establish that. So the process was to change the constitution, that reflect the need and aspiration of the Gambian people, to transit us from a dictatorship to more of a democratic dispensation. And in doing this, you know, Gambians came together in 2020 after the draft constitution. You know, consultations were done, like you said, within the country and outside. No, at least, you know, one thing I want to clear to the people is that no constitution is perfect in this world. Probably Council could agree to that.
Absolutely.
That, you know, there's no perfect constitution. What we needed was a progressive constitution. A constitution that reflects our needs and aspirations, a constitution that empower the citizens, because when we talk about governance, we are talking about the citizens. Power belongs to us, and then our voices and our involvement in every little sector of our governance is important. So when the constitution came out, my first question was, when we built the 2020 draft, submitted to the executive and then to the National Assembly, and it was rejected, this was a consultative effort. Different stakeholders, the executive, the CRC, the civil society, the Gambian people, both home and abroad, were included in this process. Why will the executive buy coffee and sit at State House and butcher that constitution to tailor the interest of an individual? You know, that is catastrophic to our democratization process, and then as far as TJ is concerned. So the thing is, like, you know, we will come into the sections, but in the first place, that the government needs to understand that the law is not for an individual, it's not for the executive, it's not for the National Assembly, it's for the Gambian people. And this law is not for anybody in power today, it's not for Saibo today, it's for, in fact, generation yet unborn. Therefore, we must be careful, we must be, you know, jealously conscious of what kind of constitution we build for the future. You know, we were born under the 1997 Constitution, and we are not pleased with it. So we don't want the next generation to be unpleased with us because we gave them laws that are self-serving and self-entrenching and then giving power to one person. So for me, you know, sections that have been amended, sections that have been removed are very fundamental. You know, I don't know why the government is running from accountability. Let's talk about Chapter 5.
Chapter 5.
You know, Chapter 5 talk about leadership and integrity. And this is just telling you how public officials are supposed to conduct themselves in a way that matches the values, you know, of our society. You know, I saw some lawyers argue, in fact, people argue that that clause is more of a moral clause, so therefore omitting it is not. But where those laws come from? From our moral and societal values. That's, based on that, we build laws. So if you are telling me that, you know, that clause is problematic, then, you know, we have a problem as a society. Telling me, Saibo, you need to uphold to integrity and then values of leadership to lead this country should not be problematic for anybody, Julie. But also, I am scared in this constitution and in the future of young people in this country.
Right,
let's talk about the section that talks about free education. You know, right to education. You know, we've seen it's been tough in this country for people to go through university education. It is expensive. So the only chance we have, even though it's not fully implemented, is the right to basic and secondary education, compulsory, free and accessible. Now in the draft, we have seen that they cancelled secondary, meaning basic education is what a fundamental right to education interprets to the executive. You know, and then many other clauses. You know, we talk about the president. One of the key reasons in the 1997 Constitution was excessive power vested on the president to do what he wants to do without check and balances. And then in the draft Constitution, we tend to curtail these powers to make the president understand that, of course, you are the head of state, but your power is driven from the people. Therefore, there must be checks on that power that give you as State House so that Saibo will not be affected tomorrow and Degan will not be affected or cancelled. Now, what did they do? Let's say, for example, the power to appoint. The president can still freely appoint and fire without consultation, without approval, without anybody checking on them. You know, that is problematic. But also one of the key clauses, I will end there and I'll come back, in that constitution that really, you know, scared me is the president looking at a section. Let's say, for example, the section that talks about the nomination of National Assembly members, like 5 nominated members. You know, the 1997 Constitution gives the power to the president to nominate. But the dismissal and recall of those members was silence. Jammeh was smart enough to use this silenceness of the law, and then, you know, because the general, if I can appoint Ndegen, obviously I should be able to dismiss Ndegen from a general perspective. But legally, you know, we need to have interpretations to that law. You know, Jammeh was using that law. When Adama came, when Barrow came, you know, he tested that law by attempting to recall Yakumba. And we went to court. Yakumba went to court. And then the courts interpret that the president have no such powers to recall nominated members. The moment you appoint them into parliament, you cannot remove them. You know, so the 2020 draft was also silent on this clause. But I was shocked for the executive to be very obvious in this section and now added exclusively the president can recall a National Assembly member. What kind of constitution are we trying to build? What kind of society are we trying to build to center power around one person become so powerful that, you know, he will be monopolizing our societal values and our governance system? So I think these are very, very problematic clauses, you know. And also one thing about young people need to be careful in this country, because if let's look at the teachers service commission. You know, young people are the highest population of the teaching fraternity. So having a commission that was going to protect and promote, you know, our welfare as teachers have been removed, and many other service commissions have been removed from that constitution. So these are problematic things that we need to pay attention to. And, you know,
Okay. But from a human rights perspective, what do you think are the clauses that are favorable? Because so far, all the clauses that you mentioned are not favorable?
From a human rights perspective, I think, okay, we have seen the general rights, right to liberty, right to property, right to, no, they don't have a lot of interest in that, so they will not touch that, you know. But let's say right to liberty, in fact, you know, in that a section that talks about, you know, detention, arrest and detention.
Yes.
You know, the commission thought, you know, within 48 hours, if I'm arrested, I should be able to be charged or released. You know, what the government does was return it back to 72 hours. What interest do they have to overstay on the detention or arrest? Do they have personal, you know, interest in those clauses? You know, but when we talk about even the education part is human right to education is a fundamental human right that we're talking about here. You know, and all of these issues are problematic in our constitution. You know, and we need to pay attention to them. For today, for me, I will tell you, the draft constitution 2024 doesn't reflect good governance, doesn't reflect promotion of human rights, does not reflect the realities of the Gambian people, and needs to be revisited again.
So, Ndeget, what do you think should have been in the constitution and it's not, and what do you think was there but removed?
Okay, Julia, first of all, before we go to content, we look at processes. It's very much important, because constitution building is consensus building. Because without consensus, then it brings more problems to us than what it comes to solve. And first, the gazetted constitution is not the first bill that I spoke on when it comes to the issue of legitimacy. And most of the time when the executive present bills to the parliament, it passes without much difficulty because they have a majority in parliament. But it's important for bills to have legitimacy, to have acceptance. It does two things. One, it makes the works of the National Assembly easy while the bill is in assembly, and two, it makes the implementation of that bill easy. And right now we have seen the executive gather all the burden of consultation and consensus building and dump it on the National Assembly. Now the National Assembly have to do all that work. Now after the Gazette, and when the bill is placed in Parliament, like Parliament has to do first, second reading, Senate to committee stage where consultations are done and all that. This is problematic because we will spend more time consulting, we will spend more time agreeing, we will spend more time advocating and lobbying with our National Assembly members to see that some things are removed and some things are inserted to have a constitution that reflects our values and our realities. And it becomes more work. And for me, like Council said, what they did is not illegal, but like we talk about democratic governance, we talk about best practices. Because for me, if we could spend resources and time and adequately take our time to draft the National Development Plan, make it very consultative. In fact, take, I think, 2 months and group stakeholders into thematic working groups and meet weekly to develop a National Development Plan that is going to serve us for 4 years. We should be able to take time, resources and consideration to build consensus on a document that is here for posterity. Because like Omar said, when the 1997 Constitution was being developed, the oldest one of us here would have been an infant. And today we are talking about another constitution. Who knows, might be in our lifetime we won't have the opportunity to witness another constitution building as a nation. So we have to build a constitution that speaks of the future, but that represents the aspiration of our generation and our future generation. And the second thing and most important, a constitution that asserts us to fully and effectively and efficiently implement our transitional justice processes that we have. Sometimes we said some of these transitional justice processes, they're processes, they're not destinations. But the reason why we are dragging over the years is because of the draconian laws we have. It's because of the archaic laws we have as a country. That is what is dragging this, that is what is dragging the constitutional reform, that is what is dragging the TRRC, that is what is dragging, most importantly, the security sector reform. And if we are, as a country, we're bringing a constitution like this, it speaks of what do we intend, what kind of progress do we want with our transitional justice processes? And I think this is something that we need to reflect in as a country.
So, Councillor Sane, if I get you right, the point you were trying to make is the fact that the executive do not have any legal basis as far as changing of this draft constitution, is concerned. Is that anything to go by?
No, I think I've actually been misconstrued. I mean, the executive do not actually, they don't have any basis. There is no basis in which they have to consult. Okay. So the consultation process is actually something that has to be done. But there is no legal basis as to the reason why they have to consult. There is no legal basis as like forcing them to consult. However, the consultation process, like she said, is actually something that has to be done, because without which people will not take ownership of the constitution. And if people don't take ownership of the constitution, when it gets to the National Assembly, it is going to be rejected, going to suffer the same fate like the previous ones. So the consultation process is very, very important. Yes, that's what I was trying to stress. Yes.
Okay, but does this also mean that the whole process can be challenged in court? Can it be challenged in court?
It cannot be, because there is no legal basis. You cannot say the government, because the government has not consulted people. Then we are going to court to challenge what the government has done. The implication of not consulting would actually be that if they go to the National Assembly, just under section 226 of the Constitution, it lays out the procedure as to how a bill that including the Constitution can be introduced into the Parliament. And then this process is the first, that is the first stage, gazetting. So there is no mention of consultation in the Constitution. The Constitution starts with gazetting. It states that the bill that introduces before it is introduced for the first time in Parliament, it has to first be gazetted. And when it is gazetted, it has to wait for another 3 months for it to be published in the Gazette again. And after the second publication, it has to wait for like 10 days for it to be introduced into Parliament. And when it is introduced into the Parliament for the first reading, the second reading, it has to be supported by 3/4 of the National Assembly. The second reading, after the second reading, the third reading also has to be supported by 3/4 of members of the National Assembly for it to pass to the IEC, for them to go and conduct a referendum. And at the stage of the referendum, the total number of voters that would come out to vote should be at least 50. 50% of the people who are eligible to vote should actually participate in the referendum. If it is less than that, that referendum is also null and void. So this is the process. After you pass that stage, that is after we have that 50% threshold, then the 75%, 50% of those who voted, 50% of the voters should participate. And then out of that 50% also, 75% of the voters should actually vote for yes, for that constitution to pass and become law. That is, it has to be assented to by the president within 7 days. So this is the process. So there is no mention of consultation. However, the consultation process is quite important. So you cannot go out there to say that the government, because it has not consulted us or has not consulted the civil society, we are going to court to tell the government that this constitution is not legal. As long as it passes through all these stages and people support it, it would still be law.
And again, I want you to come here. How do you foresee really the debate to be in the National Assembly, considering the fact that this particular draft constitution does not undergo any consultation or whatsoever?
And I just wanted to, in fact, chip in on that. You see, the draft constitution is a very important document. However, in the eyes of the Parliament, it's a bill like any other bill that has been placed before them. They're going to treat it as such. And it's going to be very interesting because I'm sure the National Assembly will take its time to do a lot of consultation about the about the Constitution, because just
at their constituency level,
both their constituency level and interest group presenting their position papers to standing and select committees of the National Assembly. And just after a week, after gazetting the draft constitution, a lot of people have started reaching out to National Assembly members. And in fact, just last weekend, Youth Parliament together with the National Assembly and the Children's Assembly were in Katong. We're having a retreat that we usually have every year for our mentoring and coaching between the three parliaments. And like people have, the NAMs themselves have already started the conversation, and they are doing their own reading, they're doing their own researching even before the bill is placed before them. So they are also getting ready as we are getting ready. So yeah, very interesting. So they're not just sitting and waiting for it to appear as a bill. They're also reading and consulting legal experts and preparing themselves. So it's going to be interesting. And for me generally, and our National Assembly has been very unpredictable and controversial. Yes, but like I said just 2 months ago when the FGM bill was, repeal bill was, I have trust in them. And for me as a civil society member and a member of the National Youth Parliament, when a bill of interest is placed before Parliament, we do our lobbying. And right now, I think it's a moment for all Gambians to go through the Constitution. Go through it yourself. If you can't, you know, consult people like counsel to help you with the content of the Constitution. What this will help us with is avoid repeating our mistakes in 2020. In 2020, the night before the voting of the Constitution for it to pass to second reading, and we were frustrated as civil society because then we know on which sides the NAMs were. And the last resort was to publish their numbers and have people call their NAMs. But you cannot control what people say when they call. And a lot of people harass the NAMs. And interestingly, as civil society, we consulted every stakeholder. But we don't, you know, specifically consult the NAMs to help them go through the document, to help them understand the interests of the Gambians and help them through the process. We did not do that. And this time we don't want to repeat that mistake. We know if this Constitution is to pass, they're the medium. We know if the Constitution is to pass in its best shape and form and representing the interests of the Gambia, they are the medium. So we are going to go through this process with them. We are going to make sure they're trained. We're going to make sure they're informed. We are going to make sure when the bill is placed in Parliament, we do our lobbying, we do our advocacy, we do our position paper to help them in the decision they make towards the Constitution. So be ready. It's going to be interesting.
Interesting
times.
Omar,
indeed. Very informed about what they are going to do. And even though they're political persons, you know, a lot of them are very conscious of what they are doing. Especially they know how Gambians have had an attention towards this Constitution, and they're also ready.
Omar, how do you foresee the debate, especially with the composition of the National Assembly?
I think she reminds me of all what we did in 2020 to have that constitution passed, because we thought that was a progressive one, and that would have at least lay a foundation for us to move ahead with our democratization. But first, I will agree with her that there are mistakes that were made, serious ones, and then as civil society, as young people, as activists, we must not repeat those mistakes. And then one of our claims right now is that there have been lack of consultation, and therefore we cannot lack that. You know, I remembered when we had that lobbying group and the numbers were shared, you know, people were threatening NAMs. These people, you know, like I said, they're the medium. We can only negotiate with them. We can make them understand that the life and livelihood of me, you, their children, their future children, lies in the kind of constitution we usher ourselves into. So therefore, it's a collective effort in order to. But also what we need to understand is in constitutional building process, you know, politics is a center stage for it, but it's also politics that spoils it. You know, like we have seen in other countries. We have seen Tunisia went through, you know, civil war, and then they built a constitution, and then all of a sudden, you know, the constitution turned to be an executive constitution. In 2005, we have seen how Kenyatta in Kenya sat with the AG and then drafted a constitution that suit them. But also that also reflect on the kind of people we have as a society. Therefore, I anticipate a very, very interesting debate this time around with the kind of, I've also started talking to NAMs, and, you know, it's interesting already. They're excited. You know, so I don't know how much the excitement will go, but one thing I know for certain is that we are not going to let it go as it is, and that is catastrophic for our democratization process. Therefore, the executive, as we speak, should also go back to the drawing board and reflect that this is a document that belongs to the people.
So it means as it stands, you will not support it in a referendum?
No, I will not support it in a referendum, and I will not advise anybody to support this constitution at the referendum. What we need to do, because, you know, a lot of people, when I wrote on Facebook and on my social media handle, people said, we can negotiate. Yeah. You know when we were supposed to negotiate? In 2020, draft constitution was negotiable. You know, let's say, for example, you talk about the retroactive nature of the constitution. So today, to negotiate that is dangerous, meaning we have a president that is going to stay for another 20 years in power, for example. You know, that is problematic to actually negotiate, because if the constitution comes into power today, meaning this term is not counted, if I'm right, meaning it's going to be ahead. So meaning another 2 terms suits the president to continue his presidency. That is not what we wish for, because meaning now the removing Jammeh is no benefit, because Jammeh stayed for 22 years. So having a president that stayed for 20 years becomes problematic, Julie. But generally for me, what I'm going to say is the executive, the National Assembly, the civil society, this is a time to go back to the table. This is a time to empower each other, to listen to each other, to negotiate, to ensure that our personal differences, to ensure that our individual interests does not surpass state and national interests.
And the civil society organization.
I want to say one thing. You know, political parties have a role to play in this, and they need to be careful what role they play. You know, our political rivalry put aside, let's build a constitution that tomorrow whoever is coming as president must not be blamed as a political party leader today or as a political party member today and what you do. It's not about Barrow versus anybody, MPP versus UDP, PUS versus NRP. It's Gambians versus Gambians. And what we make today, the decisions we'll take today, you know, saves the future that belongs to every Gambian. So we must be careful on what we do. And then the executive, one more time for the executive, that the constitution is the people's constitution and our voices really matters.
So, Council, you were about to say something. In your view, what are the most critical elements that you think should be included in the Constitution for it to stand the test of time?
Okay, I'm so glad for you asking this question. I think for our Constitution to stand the test of time, I think the yardstick, this is actually an opinion I formed based on some of the researches I made about some of the constitutions that stood the test of time, like the United States Constitution and the UK Constitution, even though it is unwritten, largely unwritten. Most of these constitutions are not political tools. They are not political documents, but they are documents that we call it citizen documents. So for a constitution to stand the test of time, it must be a citizen document and not a political document, in the sense that no one arm of government should actually have more power than the other. So there should be clearly and distinct separation of power, which is actually going to encourage checks and balances. This is what characterized the British Parliament. If you look at the British Parliament, the British run a parliamentary system of government that gives the parliament even more power than the government. The government is the parliament, but they are somehow different. So you realize that the parliament somehow controls the prime minister and the government. And you also have the king. If you go to the US, the courts have power. They can actually reject whatever the president pronounces or wants to do. So the courts are equipped, the parliament is equipped, and the executive is also has their powers. So if there is separation of powers, it promotes checks and balances. And this is what sustains a constitution. This is what enables a constitution to stand the test of time. If a constitution is an executive constitution, it suffers a lot of amendments. 20 years ago, let's say 22 now or 23 years ago, the Constitution of the Gambia has been amended 49 times. The U.S. government, that is the United States Constitution, was actually promulgated in 1791. And since then, it only has 27 amendments, 27, as opposed to 49 amendments of our Constitution in 20 years. So this tells you that our executive is actually using the Constitution to empower themselves, to help themselves have firm grips on power, to be able to control, manipulate us, to just benefit their own purpose. So this is basically why our constitutions are failing. If one government comes in today and realizes that his powers are threatened, he would try to make amendments. When Jammeh came, he amended some clauses to empower himself to be able to do certain things that he didn't do. Last time at the Gambia Bar Association page, there is this erudite former Attorney General who was actually reflecting on when the 1997 Constitution came in. It was actually a perfect constitution, according to him. It was not like how it ended up to be. This was because most of the clauses that were progressive were deleted or amended to help the president empower himself to have more power. So this allows the president to appoint the Chief Justice, appoint the Speaker from the nominated members, appoint the chairperson of the Independent Electoral Commission. These are key persons who control the government. They are the ones that, in fact, run this country. If the president is dead, the vice president is unavailable, who becomes the president? Or is the speaker? If the speaker is not there, who becomes the president? The Chief Justice. And the Chief Justice is the head of the judiciary. The speaker is the head of the National Assembly, the parliament. And then you have the president. These are the key three arms of government. If all these three arms of government, or these two arms of government that are very, very important, very cardinal, are appointed by the executive, they dance to his tune. So if you look at the 2024 Constitution that was just drafted by the president, that's what he did. He allowed himself to just unilaterally appoint the Chief Justice without involvement. Because if you look at the 2020 Constitution, it allows the president to appoint the Chief Justice, however, with consultation with the Public Service Commission as well as the National Assembly. Appointment of the Chief Justice, the appointment of the head of the IEC, that is the Independent Electoral Commission, should also be done by the president in consultation with the National Assembly. So the National Assembly play a key role in the appointment of these key persons. So the president deleted this part of the constitution to allow himself to now unilaterally appoint these people to have just like what was happening
before.
Yes. So
finally,
to add on to that, quickly, before to add on to that, now the new version, what makes it more dangerous is the vacancy of the president. That if the president, the office of the president is vacant, the vice president take over for the rest of the term.
Yes.
Instead of going to elections. Now what happens if I am president? Again is my vice. I run for 2 years and I feel like, okay, I'm tired. I want to have all of those protection and all of that. And then I feel, again, it's going to be a successor for my party. And I just resign and then become office of the president become vacant. And then they can easily take over for 3 years and build on that political base for elections again. That is a very dangerous one. Now, I have power to appoint all the 3 people that can succeed me in case of vacancy in my position. Now, what happens? Like he said, today the president resigns, Fabakary take over, or somebody else take over. Tomorrow I resign, Majagi take. So I think this concern is really, really dangerous to our progress as a society.
Then finally, I know the issue is the fact that it was not consultative, but is there any possibility where the National Assembly can be bypassed and then it is taken straight to the people? Is there any possibility like that?
So this is how it happens. It is gazetted, and after 90 plus 10 days, when it is placed in Parliament before bill. So after the second reading, Parliament has an option to take it to committee stage. And at committee stage is where the consultations happen. Like I said, that is the time the committee will go in to meet stakeholders, but also allow stakeholders to present their position papers before the National Assembly committees to have their perspectives and views presented before Parliament.
But it cannot be bypassed.
No. No, like bypassing it means we are going straight to referendum, and that is dangerous.
Wow.
What we want is to take a stand, to take a break at Parliament level, and have the consultations there, have all the lobbying, have all the advocacy to see what we as people, what we want to be added, what we want to be deleted, to be deleted, for us to have the constitution we want. And we hope and pray that will be done accordingly by the Assembly. And from there, then we can go to referendum and see what we have of the constitution. But I implore on all individuals, all citizens, all civil society, this time we have to make it right. We don't have to say it's a bad constitution, we are throwing it out. We don't have to say it's a good constitution, we are embracing it. No, we are taking our time, consulting each other, educating each other, informing each other, lobbying and advocating until we have the constitution we want before we go to referendum.
Until we have the constitution we want before we go to referendum. So thank you very much again. Thank you, Omar, and thank you, Council Sane, for really joining me in this conversation. And it will continue, really. This is not the stepping point. Viewers, we will go for a short commercial break. When we come back, the program continues. So stay tuned.
Get a QCell SIM card for free. Yes, absolutely free. Walk into any of our customer care centers and get a SIM free of charge. With a QCell SIM card, you can get the fastest and the most reliable internet plus wide range of amazing services. So rush now to any of our care centers and get a free SIM now. For more information, call our customer care on 111. QCell Sunyubus. We innovate, others follow. Terms and conditions apply.
With so many things to do in a single day, it's important to have a network you can trust. When there's family and friends to connect with and business calls to make, you need a network that is reliable and fast. Talk longer, browse faster, go farther, and roam wider. When your network is solid, the world is your oyster. QCell, your trusted network in the Gambia.
It's happy time. Get 50% off all calls to any network. Enjoy calls every day to any network from 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. Is it too good to be true? QCell. We innovate, others follow. The future is now. With QCell's 5G network, experience speeds like never before. With our new 5G Rocket Fixed Internet plan, get speeds from 10 Mbps to 100 Mbps. Your 5G-enabled devices. Walk into QCell headquarters to get one of our 5G routers and experience the true feeling of 5G. Only with QCell. QCell brings you the future. Tech, innovation, incredible speed. The future is now. For more information, call our customer care on 111. QCell, Sunyapus. We innovate, others follow. Terms and conditions apply. Looking for internet for your free videos, pictures, chats, work, and school projects? Think Free Night.
Welcome back from that short commercial break. If you're just tuning in, this is the Youth Dialogue with me, Jewel Danjai. And, you know, as we wrap up that interesting segment there about the draft constitution, we are moving into something different. And this time I am joined by Jere Cham, who happens to be an entrepreneur. He's a trainer, a coach, and of course, a migrant returnee. Good evening, Mr. Cham.
Evening, Julie. Thank you for having me. Like she said, my name is Jere Cham. I'm a blended breed of both Sukuta and Gunjur. Yeah, that makes it amazing. So thank you for having me.
It's a pleasure.
Yeah, it's a pleasure.
So migrant returnee, Jere, from where?
Libya, actually. Just 7 years ago, I would say, that was around 2016. I freshly graduated from Newsrod, and then, you know, when you are in school, it's a different atmosphere after school. So what ended up happening was some of those life challenges was not that much known to me. So when I finished school and then I started realizing things as some of those challenges, which are kind of crazy, if I would say. Those part of those challenges are like family situations and my aspirations to further my education. Those were kind of challenges that led me to embark on the migrant journey, actually. In 2017. So I spent about 1 year, 3 months in my entire journey. But I went through series of challenges and experience that only God knows. But it also helped me in modeling me to becoming the human that I am today. Yeah. So coming back in 2017, I've changed my dimension of how I do things. So what I did was like there are certain things that I was able to learn when I was there. In Libya, yeah. So because one thing that I find interesting was in Libya, if you have a skill, you are a hot cake, I would say. Yeah. Because there get to sometimes where when we are like arrested kind of like or in prison, Arab people will come and take out those that have skills. They will guarantee them and take them out and go and make them work for them. So which I was not having at the time. So what happened was like I'm like I am only having my education here with me then. So whatever, when I came back, I also went into skill, fully. I went into learning skills. So my first skill was satellite installation, which I did at Starlink Consortium. So from there, I also, hustled for other skills. In this, I was able to have certain opportunities. Opportunities like I end up having that, contract with YMCA, the Gambia. Yeah, so I got a contract with them on that because sometimes you don't know you have certain things in you until you are tested.
You explore,
yeah. So because when I came newly, because of my vocality, I became also someone that everyone wants to connect somehow. Because I did a couple of awareness raising for IOM. I did it for YEP, a youth empowerment project. Also, I have couple of videos that they even took.
But really, what led to your return? Was it a voluntary return or? So it was. You voluntarily returned.
Yeah, I voluntarily returned. After knowing that I could have done something differently with myself here.
Back home.
Yeah, back home. So I ended up volunteering to accept the repatriation of IOM back to my home country.
But how does it felt?
At the time it was a mixed feeling because already a lot of money was put into me, you understand. And also some already presumed that I was already dead. So coming back, it was a mixed feeling, knowing that maybe a lot of resources were put into me to make sure that I make it to Europe, and also knowing that I'm alive was actually a mixed feeling. So when I even saw my mom, I was crying, but she was also crying, but also excited that she finally saw her own, son, something like that. So, but from there, I already have my method. Even with bullying and small pecans, I was able to focus on what I want to become. Just like I said, skills, entrepreneurship there, agriculture there, because that's my legacy. My father and mom, all they do, since we were young, it's farming. So I was also with my, namesake family, since I was young as well. So I use those methods to develop myself. So through those series of learning had helped me to identify what actually I want in life. So with that satellite, it connected me to a contract that I also train about 50 plus individuals, young people in Gambia here into satellite installation.
Yeah, we will come to that, but first let's explore on your migration, that is the journey that you embarked on. Before embarking on this journey, do you have any prior knowledge or whatsoever about it? Yeah.
No, because mine, how it happens, it happens so quick. It happened so quick. Why I say that, because when my mind went to this, it doesn't even take a week. And then I left. So you can see I don't know how it happens for others, but it's a kind of an energy that when it gets to you, you can't resist.
You must just
that's how it happens. Because my mind was so fixated on, I must make sure that I provide for my family. I must also make sure that I
And at the time, you thought the only place that you can make it's by embarking, on this journey. Despite all the, the things, the horrible things you had, people dying on a daily basis and everything, that still could not deter you from going.
Right. Like I said, it's you wouldn't like only those that went through can explain this to one another. It's like, it's a kind of an energy when it gets to you. You just can't resist it. That's how, you know, obsessed I was just to make sure that I leave the country and go, you know, because I was also looking at the factors that can help me to further my education. You understand? Because I know my mom, she's alone now. I lost my dad in 2010. So my sister is a teacher that was also, you know, contributing to my education. But, you know, high level education is too expensive. They might not be able to, you know, contribute to that. You know, so that being the case, that's also, you know, was a factor that has also, you know, put that pressure on me to
really embark on it. So since your return, how has it been like for you, especially the reintegration package or part of it? How were you able to reintegrate to society and all of that? Do you face any stigma, discrimination and all of that?
Of course, that's common. Anyone that embark knowingly, that people know that you embark and then you come back, you will go through that pecons or bullying. You know, I actually went through that, but like mine, like I said, I have my game plan already. So even though people were like, sometimes friends, you know, they will just disturb you, you went and then like that, Jerry, you know, so I don't take it serious sometimes, because when you take certain things serious, you become that, like, because that's how they want to see you. Maybe like if I call you that, you become sad. So that's how I want to see you. Now you become that, exactly. So I'm not that kind of a person. You know, my relentlessness has helped me to overpass those things. So because I said I have a method, what I focus on was learning. So because when I came, in fact, even the reintegration that I received from IOM, I told them to put it into my education, because I'm someone that, like I said, all I know when I was around was learning.
Okay. So the issue of the Fulfillment Quest initiative, how did it came about?
That's my recent initiative, okay? Because anytime that you move out on the street, you are faced with realities, that is no doubt. And these are realities that, realities of human suffering, realities of human struggles, realities of certain challenges that make people to do things that are undone. To be frank, or to be candid, when you look at it in terms of humanity basis, it's undone. You know, today the crime rate has increases. Today, murdering cases in terms of between families has adjusted. Why? Gambia have never known things like this. You understand what I'm saying? Because there is certain factor or certain drive that is pushing this thing. So I feel like me going through this journey, me also understanding certain things, because before I go, I always tell people the two things that made me to come this far was the level of awareness that I was able to generate from that journey, and also my resiliency in making sure that I develop myself to the level that I am today, were the things that helped me. So when I came back, I was there looking at these things. I said I can also contribute to humanity. How? I said, okay, I must build a team and also make sure that I work towards this. So the first team that I try to build, those that I reach out to, young people, most of them are interested in money. So I want people to be benevolent. That means you have to connect to humanity. So once I saw those things, I'm like, those ones are not ready, because they are telling me that if money is there, then I'm ready here. Then I pack them.
So does that mean you're doing it for free?
Actually, it's a non-profit.
Okay.
So right now, that is why I even want to be here, because we are reaching out to stakeholders. This is a challenge that every Gambian has to, has to support. Whether it's individual, CSOs, NGOs, the government itself, all of us are stakeholders in making sure that the life of youths, the life of individuals in the country are safe and are in a direction that are promising and fulfilling. If we have this team more, you will see that people will not, in fact, choose to go through this enduring journey. So that is why we don't only target, in fact, even the return migrant, because targeting the return migrants only, it doesn't make sense to a certain point, because these are people that already experience. So why would you target only them? So we target, in fact, teenagers and kids from 10 to 15, because at those age stages, influences of certain kind of life attraction come across your way. We target schools, students, especially primary, junior and senior, because those also are stages where some people will drop out, some people will not be willing to learn, some people will go through certain things. So we make sure that we address those things.
Thank you. Okay. So thank you very much, Gere. I'm afraid that is all we got time for, but surely be rest assured that I will engage you to know the lives that you have transformed, and how young people actually are benefiting on this. So thank you very much for coming on this show. Viewers, I am afraid that is all we got time for. Do join us next week for another interesting edition of the Youth Dialogue. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Sean.